campers, and welcome to your Salt Marsh Sea Camp Challenge. So we took a little bit of a walk in the salt marsh and got to see a lot of the native plants and animals in it. So I want to challenge you guys to take a lap outside of your house this week and try to find some flowers, because we're going to do some plant impressions. All right, it's going to be impressive. You'll sure to be impressed. It's gonna be great, I promise. That's the end of all my terrible jokes. So what you'll need to do this craft is some wax paper. I didn't have any, so I actually am using sandwich parchments, but whatever you got. I'm using cardstock in our little pressing, but you can also just use books and rubber bands, and I'll explain how you do that later. You're gonna need to go outside and take a lap and find some flowers. So just get flowers, all kinds. You can get leaves, all kinds of stuff. And you're gonna need some books, preferably heavy ones, and scissors. So wax paper or parchment paper, some sort of cardstock or a little bit thicker paper than normal. Get some flowers and some leaves kind of around the house, and then also some really heavy books. And this will be step one for our Salt Marsh Plant Press Challenge. I took a lap today around campus and around my apartment and found some really pretty flowers. Now, the type of flowers that you want anything with a petal. We also got some really cool leaves as well. Now, let me talk about leaves really quickly. So the leaves you want are going to be the really thin leaves. The ones you can kind of bend in half and they can still make a little U and a little circle like that. Anything thick like this will probably be okay, but this is kind of a little bit too thick. You don't want anything like a succulent or anything that's not going to be pressed down really firm. So all the leaves I got so far seem like they're going to make it, but anything that you can bend in half and it'll actually snap in half, that's not going to be a flower you're going to want to press. Now for these little cluster flowers that I've gotten, I'll take each one individually and take the flower out. You can leave the stem of the flower on there if you'd like, or you can cut them off. Depends on whatever floats your boat, creams your corn, greens your beans. Now I also have some flowers with thorns on them. Be very careful with thorns. Don't press those. No one wants those in their really pretty picture or craft. So you can make sure to cut those off. Also, hard parts of the flower, like the back of the stem, you want to cut those off too, because anything hard won't press down. If you're using anything like a sunflower or a marsh daisy or just a wild daisy, they have that kind of hard center in the middle. I would try to just use the petals of the daisies, that way they can still press down really easily, or just make sure you have something really, really heavy and leave it for a little bit longer. That way all the moisture can get out of it, and you can use it for later use. So what you're gonna do, all you're gonna do is first, I'm gonna take my cardstock. I'm using cardstock just so I can kind of pick it up and move it, because where I am doing this here at the Sea Camp classrooms, I might have to move it later. So I wanna make sure that I'm able to do that. So I'm gonna put my little, I'm calling it wax paper because that's what you guys will use. I'm gonna put my wax paper down, and I'm gonna take my petals, and I'm gonna put them flat down, as flat as I can get them. Now, not all of them will go perfectly flat, and I'm gonna kind of remove some of the stems. That way I know that I can get them flattened out. And I'm gonna keep doing this with all the flowers, all the different types of flowers, trying to put them petal out. And this way, whenever we plant them, and so we plant them and we press them, it's getting out all the moisture of the leaves. Plants, as you know, need water to be able to survive, and so we want to use the petals for art projects later. So I'm going to get them as flat as I can get them all along the page, and I'm going to do a good bit here, and then later we're going to be able to do the craft. But step one is to make the impressions so we can be impressed. Okay, I promise I'll stop. I didn't, did I? So you take any flower that you want, Another key point that I need to make is you don't want to have the flowers overlap. I got some close calls here, and I'm going to do another one so I can fit the rest of these so I have some to play with, but the more the merrier when it comes to flowers. So what I'm going to do now is, since I have them all pretty much flattened out and where I want them, I'm going to take my other piece of wax paper. I'm going to press it down. Now I'm going to use my hands to go flatten down and spread across. So flat down and spread across, and do this until all your plants are lined up and you feel like you've got them in the shape that you want them. Now remember, I have to move these, so I'm going to put another piece of cardstock on top of here, and this is when you stack the books. So if you need to move them, take both hands on top and bottom and slide them to where you need to move them, just like this. Put them down, and then you can stack your books. So you're going to stack your books, and you're going to leave them here. I would say between 2.5, 3 weeks, somewhere in there. That way you can get all the moisture out of them, and then later we can do the crafts. If you have scoured around your house constantly and you can't find wax paper, you can't find cardstock, and you're just looking around and can't find anything to substitute, a simple book will be the trick. So anything that can help press it down would be great. Even if you just take a book and take a couple flowers and petals and put them in each page. So let's put them right here and then go a little bit further, put some in here, maybe a little bit more. So press it down. Press it down, and then take some rubber bands. I would suggest at least 2, maybe even more, and you can press it down. And you can see the little folds in the pages. Try to get it close to those folds as you possibly can. And when in doubt, use more books. So, and just let it sit on a bookshelf or a shelf in your room. It's an excuse to be messy for a little while, and then in a couple weeks, you can go ahead and take it off. Stay tuned. Do this first half of the challenge, and in just a second, I'll show you what to do with the flowers once we've pressed them. So good luck, take a lap, and I'll see you in just a second. 3 weeks later. Welcome back to Plant Week. It's been 3 weeks, and our plant presses are probably good to go. So what we're going to do for our next activity and next part of our plant presses is we're actually going to get ready to glue our plants onto something. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a jar. I have a lot of sea glass, so I want to be able to have a pretty jar to put my sea glass in. So I'm going to use a jar. You can also use a picture frame, anything with glass on it. If you're trying to use a glass drinking cup, probably not the best idea because those get washed. So think of things that are just going to be decoration. I also did a drawing. You can get a piece of cardstock or some thick paper and draw a pattern on it beforehand, so you have a little bit of a guide of where you want to put your flowers beforehand. And we're also can make a card for our friends. So these are the different products that I can use those plant presses on. What you're going to need is clear glue or Mod Podge or any crafting glue that can be clear. You're going to want some sort of little tiny bowl because we're going to use the dabbing method whenever we paint. So I'm going to put a little glue in my bowl, and I'm going to get my paintbrushes. The type of paintbrushes that you want is either A, a sponge brush, or B, a wide brush. Anything that is bendable and wide. You want something that's really soft. So let's start on our plants. 3 weeks have gone by, and we're going to get to see if our plants turned out as pretty as we think they will. So the first ones I'm gonna get out are the one from our book. And this took out all the moisture from our plants so we can use them. There we go. Yay, so many plants. We have some really pretty presses here. I'm very impressed. Okay, last time I promised. So step one, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your paintbrush. I'm gonna use a paintbrush instead of my sponge brush just because I like to use that better. And you're not going to glob the paint, all right? You don't wanna glob it, you just wanna dab. So we're gonna get a little bit of paint on, glue on our paintbrush, and we're going to paint the glass first. This will help your petals stick to the glass itself. Pro tip, you just want to focus on one side at a time because you don't want your glue to dry before you put the plant on there. And you also want to make sure that you have a place to hold the glue. So I'm going to start with this really pretty purple petal right here. I'm going to put it on. And I'm going to dab with my finger just on the petal. We don't want to get glue on our fingers because that can be really messy. And then what I'm going to do is going to also take a little bit more glue and I'm going to just brush the petal. So it might move a little bit. That's okay. We're just going to brush that petal on there. All the way around, you want to make sure the whole surface of the petal gets some sort of thin layer of glue. Okay, if the glue is dripping, you have too much glue. Remove the glue. Let's start with this petal. So again, you put the petal on the glue, and you do a thin layer of glue on the petal. It can work on the leaves, it can work on the flower petals, and you do that all around to where we can make this really pretty pattern on our glass. Same thing happens with our scenery painting. So for our scenery painting, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a little bit of glue and we're going to put it on the paper. And I have big plans for this sun. I'm very excited. I'm going to cover the paper with glue. Remember, just a thin layer. We're going to dab, not glob. I'm going to take one of these petunia petals. I'm going to put it, I'm going to put it right in the sun, just like that. And give it another thin layer of glue to help make it stay. And you can use the paintbrush. Go the direction of the petals. Don't make my first mistake, especially with the ones that are really thin, because that will help it keep the petals where you want them. I'm going to use these little tiny red flowers to put it on. I colored a little bit outside of that and just a thin layer on top. And I'm going to do that for a couple others. We also can make a card. So So you want to make sure the card will open and close, so you want to fold it straight in half, and then we can decorate it. Remember? Take your paint, glue, sorry, I keep saying that, your glue, take your plant, thin layer, and then we can make a card. Dear Sea Campers, we love you! Now you can make a card for your friends or family, a scene of the salt marsh so we can love and appreciate those amazing plants that live in that crazy environment, or we can create a plant decorated jar so we can hold all of our awesome trinkets that we find on the beach or in our backyard, anything like that. So make sure you post on the Flipgrid and show some of your craft projects that you've done with your family or that you have done yourself, and we'd love to see them. Bye, campers!